Hello and welcome back to another episode of Texas River Legends. In this episode, we're doing something a little bit different. I'm going to be showing you how to take a basic bait casting reel with the standard shielded bearings, turning them into these sort of open ceramic bearings, and make this thing cast about 5 times better. So, most all reels come with this sort of standard bearing. This is a shielded stainless steel bearing. That's extremely common. There's lots of upgrades and things you can do to buy upgraded bearings. Basically, what an upgrading bearing is an open bearing. What's the difference between this and this? Well, this actually has a shield on it, but the shield is actually holding in grease. Now, grease is what is inside of most all stock bearings in a baitcaster. But there's really only two or three bearings that really make a big difference in a baitcaster. There's not that many bearings. Yeah, you see a reel that says 10 bearing system, so a 9 plus 1. There's one bearing is the anti-reverse bearing that's in here. And most all of them, I think four of the bearings are in, 4 of the 9 bearings in this reel are actually in the handle. That's why this is so smooth. So those don't really count. But there's one in the spool tension knob right here, which is easy to get out. It just pops out with this little round retainer clip. And there's one in this side plate. Those are the two most important ones. This one on your spool can be relatively hard to get out of, so I'm just simply going to show you how to wipe that off and oil it. And the other one is under the shaft, but that takes a lot to get to and really doesn't affect that much. I have stripped this reel down and actually degreased all of the bearings, and it is a lot smoother. So one thing I will say before you do this to your bearings, if you do not like your reel to make any noise at all, do not do this. If you like a quiet reel, because when you degrease a bearing and when you take all of that out and you actually do this and take shields off and just take the grease out and put oil in, your bearing's going to make a lot more noise. It's going to actually, you're going to hear the bearing spin. Grease quiets it down a bit, and it but it also slows it down and adds drag, so it doesn't spin as bad. That's good. So what we're going to be doing is taking the shields off of the bearings. I've already done the one from the spool tension knob. Basically, I'll show you what to do with this other one, and then I'll show you how to degrease them and oil them up. So when you get your bearing like this in your side plate, it's super easy to get that out. Get one of these little bobbins or any pointy thing, small screwdriver could work, and basically just pop the retainer pin out. Now these things are spring loaded and they will go flying, so be careful. Now you may notice, well, now I have 2 retainer clips out, what should I do? Well, this one that's kind of shaped like a hexagon actually goes in the side plate, and the one that's round goes in the spool tension knob. So you can pretty much set those together and you're not going to get them confused. Next, take the same thing and just pop the bearing out. It should be not too hard of a fit. You don't want to bend it or anything. Now here's your bearing, right? Set this aside so you have a little bit of bearing to work. So if you look really close on there, very, very close, the bearing actually has a tiny retainer clip that looks like this, right? Holding on the shield. This is the shield. So the retainer clip's relatively easy to get out, and the number one tool for this is this. Now, it doesn't have to have the swim bait, that just helps me grip it. Basically, what you can do is take any fish hook, because it has a super fine point. Now, if you're looking at this video, chances are you're a fisherman, and chances are you have fish hooks. Simply run that fish hook, if I stop dropping the bearing, look at the bearing from the side until you see the little hole where the retainer pin edges are. The retainer pin edges actually have, if I hold this up like this, you can see that slanted edges, so it'll all pop out quite nicely. All you gotta do is find that little hole, it's right there, and just put the fish hook down into it and pop this retainer pin out like that. Then it just pulls off. Be careful you don't bend them. They're quite light wire. That's your retainer clip. Set that aside. Don't be losing them, because you might want to put it back in. A simple way to just put it back in is quite literally just pop it back on. Now, you might try tapping it, see if you can get the shield off like that. Sometimes the shield will pop off without having to take the other one off. There's your shield. But sometimes you have to get both off and then the shields come off. So let's go ahead and do that on this one. It's a very simple process. And like I said, you could go and pay for someone to do it, or you could just do it yourself. It's really not that hard. It can take a bit of effort, but it's quite worth it. Very much worth it. Now, this particular one's retainer pin is causing me some trouble in mass quantities and not letting it come out. Don't do this with a fish hook you care about, or it'll get destroyed. There's my retainer pin. If the thing doesn't just pop out, just flip it over, tap it a few times. Eventually the shield will come out. So I'm going to be dropping it on a hard surface. There it came. There's your last clip. Now, we've got a fully open bearing. If I spin this, you can see it's already much smoother. Now we need to move on to the next step. These are your two most important bearings. They're the same exact size, you don't have to worry about getting them confused. One goes in the side plate, one goes in here. Those are your two most valuable, two most important bearings you could ever have in this reel. If you're brave enough, you can actually use a pair of channel locks with some tape and gently pop this peg out. I'm not going to do that right now because I need this reel to work. I don't want to risk damaging something. That's where things are a little bit dangerous, is when you're trying to get that bearing out. But you don't really need that bearing to be cleaned like this. Like I said, I've degreased most of the bearings in this reel. I've degreased the one that's down into the shaft, just so because I don't want to take the shields off that one. So I just degreased it with some oil in it and it's good to go. With these two, I'm going to fully degrease it. So let's move out to the garage and I will show you exactly what you need to degrease these and get these things silky smooth. Alright, so we're here, we're ready to do this. I'd recommend doing this on a well-ventilated area, as it says on your degreaser. And what I have here is super clean. This is just a standard degreaser. You're going to need a degreaser, the same bobbin you used, or a screwdriver, whatever you used to get the bearings out. Your bearings, an empty jar, and a jar of water that ideally shouldn't have dirt in it, but oh well. Alright, so the first thing you're going to do, take a jar, and you're going to put your bearings into your jar. Alright? Next, you're going to get some degreaser. Be careful using this stuff, follow whatever it says. I'm just going to put just enough degreaser to cover the bearings. Now, then, I would not recommend sticking your fingers in there. Just kind of swirl the bearings around in the degreaser. This stuff will dissolve grease relatively quickly. These bearings didn't have that much. So all you're just going to do is just swirl them around in there. Like so. If you can get one on there, if you have a magnetized bobbin, you can really swirl one individual one around like so. And you can get the other one, do the same thing. You can also do this. That's what you really want to do. Do that, it'll vibrate the grease out of the bearings. If you look, you can actually see all of the grease floating around in there that's come out of those bearings. So that's a good sign. That means we're actually getting somewhere. Now that you've done that, next step is to actually take the bearings and put them in the water. You're just going to get your bearing. It helps to have a magnetized thing. Plunk that in the water. Same thing. Drop that in the water. Then you're going to get the bearings in the water and swish those around. Same thing you did in the degreaser, but in the water this time, to really get all of the degreaser out and any remaining grease. Same thing, you can vibrate them. And switch them around again. Now you're going to go from this back into the degreaser. one last time. Twist them around in that again. Vibrate them in that again. Alright, there you go. Now you're going to take your bearings, put them back into your water, and put your degreaser away. Alright, do the same thing you did earlier. Just switch these around in the water. What I like to do is actually take the bobbin, put it through the middle hole in there, and then just swish it around like so. That's what I'm doing when I say swish it around. It's a bit of a time-consuming process, but wait to see how well the bearings roll. Once again, vibrate them. And pull them out. Now, ideally, you should have had something to dry them on, but since I didn't, and there's no more degrease around there, I guess I'm just going to use my shirt. Right, so now you're going to take your bearings and you're actually going to blow them out with an air compressor, which I'm not going to do on camera because that audio would be absolutely garbage. So I will go blow those out and I'll be right back. Alright, so I got my bearings blown out. Now if you watch this, I put this on here and I spin it. That right there, that's a smooth bearing. That's what your bearings start doing once you do this. This one's not quite as smooth, probably gonna need to try to get a little more grease out. Still really smooth though. But this one right here, this is how smooth your bearings will be. Way smoother. Alright, so what you're going to do is take those and you're not going to put the shields back on them. Now, if you're going to ever fish saltwater, ever, with this reel, put the shields back on. Because if you don't, you're going to have problems. But I don't fish saltwater with this reel, so I'm just going to go ahead and drop these back in. Or actually, first, get yourself a Q-tip, clean out the area the bearing was before. You don't want any excess grease, oil, or junk in that hole. Get that all nice and clean. You can, anything excess, get around the edge here. Alright, so once you got that, you're going to take your bearing and you're going to put a tiny drop, just a little bitty drop of oil, high-speed reel oil, all the way around the bearing. Not clogging up the bearing. You can spin it. There. Put a little drop in there. Honestly, probably did too much on the other one. But so much freer, so much smoother. Just gonna put that in there. I'm actually gonna get a little bit of that oil. I don't quite that much in there. You want that to be nice and smooth. You want a little bit of oil, but that's nice and free. Way freer than when they have grease in them. Yeah, you're just going to pop that back down in there, like so, and you're going to put the retainer pin back over it, right? Now, if you're fishing, nuts. So yeah, you heard that, maybe you didn't, but my retainer pin went flying, fortunately. I did this in a clean room, so the floor was clear and I could see. Now be careful when you're putting these back in. Probably tweezers is the way to go. You're just gonna want to pop that in. For some reason, this one being difficult. Could be I put the bearing in the wrong direction. Nah. Okay, so you're just gonna, just pop that in there like so. Fits right in there, and you're gonna make sure the container pin is not doing that. You want it underneath that lip. All corners, all edges need to be underneath that clip, like so. You can see your bearing's still super smooth and ready to rumble. When you put that spool in there, things already way smooth. Alright, so next up, you're going to take your other bearing. You're going to put that back into this. Once again, get your Q-tip, clean out that area. You don't want any, I forgot that was a direct access to the gear. Now while you're at it, I'm going to put a teeny dab of grease down in there onto the gear that's actually visible in there, just to ensure that that gear is nice and greased up in there. Okay, now we put a little more like that gear. I'm gonna pop this bearing down into that hole right there after you made sure the hole was cleaned out. And then you're gonna put the retainer pin from that one right smack dab back over. This one can be a bit tricky if you don't take the handle off because the drag knob can get in the way, but it's definitely possible. You might want to take the handle and drag knob off if you've never done this before. I've done this multiple times on multiple reels, so I am a trained professional, not, but anyway, yeah, so this is not working. So you're just gonna pop, you know, dude, it'd be just so amazing if you like got back in there. You know, like come on, man. Be a good little lad and go back into your hole. Your home. Home where the heart is. You're wasting my GoPro battery. You're wasting my time. You're wasting everything. You're wasting your time. You know, retainer pins have a busy life, dude. What are you doing? What you doing down in there, bro? There we go. Okay. Yeah. So you just pop that in like so. I will edit all that stuff out. And check that your bearing's still super free. That's ridiculously free. And yeah, this thing's about to be liquid smooth. Now, you just simply pop your spool right back. Actually, first, put your spool tension knob in there after you clean out a little bit of excess oil that's on top of that. You don't want that falling down in your bearing, clogging it up. Not what you want. So just pop that back down in there. Leave it pretty loose so you can try out how fast your spool's gonna spin. Drop this spool right back down in there. I actually like to put a teeny dab of grease, so small you can barely see it. Just a little dot around the end of the spool knob, help it with reduced friction. Fit that back on there. Ooh, that is smooth. Oof. So now your reel's way smoother. Now the sound you hear, I did warn you about. That is the sound of open bearings. I think it's kind of a cool sound. I kind of like that. But yeah, that's how you degrease your bearing. Now take all your retainer pins and shields and all that stuff, put them somewhere secure, put them somewhere safe. Don't want to be losing that stuff in case you ever want to put those back on. But for the now, your reel is liquid, ridiculously smooth. Probably smoother than it ever was in the factory. So yeah, there you go, guys. That is how to turn this reel, or any baitcaster, into a casting machine. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.